sit with me for a while. Let's talk about something that most men misunderstand. Anger. Not the kind that shouts or breaks things, but the deeper current that lives beneath your chest, waiting to be seen. You've probably felt it for years. That sudden tightening in your body, the pressure behind your jaw, the sharpness that rises when someone crosses a line. It's there when life feels unjust, when your boundaries are ignored, when your efforts go unseen. And yet, somewhere along the way, you were taught that anger is dangerous, that it makes you bad or childish or weak, so you learn to bury it. But here's the truth. Anger is not the enemy of peace. It's the guardian of self-respect. Jung said that what we repress doesn't disappear, it descends. When you repress anger, it doesn't vanish. It goes underground, where it corrodes the system that hides it. It shows up as cynicism, fatigue, sarcasm, anxiety, depression, or addiction. The more you suppress it, the more it leaks out sideways, in tone, in withdrawal, in resentment. Anger in its clean form is life's way of saying something sacred has been violated. It's an impulse to protect, to assert, to restore integrity. It becomes destructive only when we either deny it or become possessed by it. The work is to reclaim anger as energy, not explosion. That's our path today. To understand what anger really is, how it gets twisted, how it hides, and how to transmute it into power, the kind of power that creates rather than destroys. 1. What it actually is and what it isn't. Anger is not evil. It's not proof that you failed spiritually or emotionally. It's one of the most vital and intelligent emotions we possess. It signals that a boundary has been crossed, that a value has been ignored, or that something you love is under threat. Without anger, there would be no moral outrage, no revolution, no protection of innocence. But most men have only seen two kinds of anger, violent chaos or passive suppression. The first is the man who lashes out, hurting others and himself. The second is the man who swallows everything, convincing himself he's above it, while quietly eroding from within. Both are distortions. Both come from fear. In its healthy form, anger is a precise emotion. It says no when something violates your integrity. It says stop when something endangers your well-being. It's the backbone of discernment. Anger becomes toxic only when it's mixed with shame or humiliation. Then it mutates into rage, not a clean boundary, but a desperate attempt to regain lost power. Jung would say that the man who fears his anger has exiled his inner warrior, and the man who glorifies his anger has become possessed by that same warrior. The task is not to destroy the warrior, but to mature him. Anger, when owned consciously, is the furnace of transformation. It burns away passivity, victimhood, and illusion. It clarifies, it awakens, it teaches you where you end and the world begins. 2. How it appears in ordinary life. You don't meet anger only in outbursts. You meet it in quiet rooms. You meet it when your partner interrupts and you smile while feeling your chest tighten. You meet it when you say, "It's fine," while knowing it isn't. You meet it at work when credit is stolen and you pretend not to care. You meet it when someone disrespects your effort and you laugh it off instead of naming the sting. Anger rarely begins loud. It starts as tension in the throat, the jaw, the solar plexus. Then, if ignored, it hardens into bitterness. If suppressed long enough, it turns inward, becoming self-hatred. The man who cannot express anger cleanly will direct it toward himself through overwork, self-criticism, or quiet sabotage. You'll recognize unconscious anger in 3 signs. First, displacement. When you get angry at the wrong target, snapping at someone innocent because the real conflict feels too risky. Second, repetition, finding yourself in the same arguments over and over, as if life is trying to teach you the lesson you keep avoiding. And third, projection, accusing others of aggression while denying your own. None of this makes you bad. It makes you human. The key is to approach anger with curiosity instead of judgment. Ask what it's protecting, because anger at its root is always guarding something tender: dignity, safety, truth, love. 3. Origins and the boy who stayed. Anger is often the emotion boys are punished for earliest. When a boy shows sadness, he's comforted. When he shows fear, he's protected. But when he shows anger, he's corrected. Don't talk to me like that. Who do you think you are? You're just like your father. The message lands. Anger equals rejection. So he learns to redirect it, to jokes, to silence, to rebellion, to distance. If his father was harsh, he may fear becoming the same. If his father was absent, he may not know what strength looks like at all. If his mother was wounded or anxious, he may have absorbed the role of peacemaker, learning to regulate her emotions instead of his own. Either way, the boy learns that being good means being harmless, and harmlessness becomes his prison. Inside many men lives that boy, the one who made himself small so love wouldn't leave, the one who learned to keep peace at the expense of truth. As an adult, that pattern continues. He avoids conflict, apologizes for existing, and confuses kindness with self-erasure. He wonders why people don't respect him, not realizing that people can only respect boundaries that exist. To reclaim anger is to free that boy from his impossible role. It's to say to him, you don't have to smile through disrespect anymore. You don't have to hold the whole world together. It's safe to say no now. That's not rebellion, that's maturation, the transition from the boy who needed permission to the man who grants it. 4. Contact without collapse. To contact anger means to feel it without losing your center. Most men swing between two poles, explosion or suppression, because they were never taught how to inhabit the middle. The middle is presence. You don't need to yell to feel anger. You don't even need to act on it right away. You simply need to let yourself know you're angry. That awareness alone is revolutionary, because the moment you acknowledge it consciously, you move from being possessed by anger to being in relationship with it. Jung called this holding the tension of the opposites, staying aware of both the emotion and the observer. One part of you feels the fire, another part stays grounded enough to learn from it. That's where transformation happens, in contact, not in collapse. When anger rises, instead of shaming it or acting it out, notice its message. What boundary is being crossed? What truth wants to be spoken? What responsibility am I avoiding? Anger isn't here to humiliate you. It's here to reintroduce you to your own power. The man who can feel anger without being overtaken by it becomes a force of clarity in every room he enters. 5. Containment before expression. Containment is what separates a warrior from a brute. It's the difference between a sword in a scabbard and a sword swinging wildly. Containment doesn't mean holding everything in. It means holding it well. It's the capacity to feel intense emotion while remaining sovereign. A man with containment doesn't broadcast his anger. He radiates it quietly, unmistakably, cleanly. People feel it not as threat, but as presence. Uncontained anger tries to dominate others. Contained anger restores order. One burns bridges, the other forges them. When you contain anger, you discover it's not only destructive, it's deeply creative. It gives rise to assertiveness, vision, and action. Many men confuse meekness with virtue, but meekness is simply anger turned inward. Contained anger, by contrast, is power that serves conscience. It's what allows you to confront injustice without cruelty, to defend what matters without losing grace. That's why Jung associated the integration of anger with individuation itself, the process of becoming whole, because without anger there can be no clear I. You can't form a self without the ability to say no. 6. Consequences of avoidance versus integration. When you avoid anger, it doesn't vanish, it turns sideways. You become irritable instead of assertive, resentful instead of expressive, cynical instead of clear. Over time, avoidance drains your vitality. You lose enthusiasm. Life starts to feel like performance rather than participation. Avoidance also warps relationships. People feel your suppressed anger even when you don't show it. They sense the tension in your eyes, your voice, your stillness. Suppression makes you unpredictable. Integration makes you trustworthy. Integrated anger is quiet power. It's not reactive. It's responsive. It doesn't need to prove itself. It stands, speaks, and stays. The integrated man doesn't apologize for his strength because it's anchored in integrity. The cost of avoiding anger is self-betrayal. The reward for integrating it is authority, not over others, but over yourself. 7. Archetypal framing, the warrior and the king. In Jung's language, anger belongs to the warrior archetype. The immature warrior is reckless. He swings his blade at everything that moves. The mature warrior is discerning. He fights only when necessary, and always in service of the kingdom. The immature warrior uses anger for domination. The mature warrior uses it for direction. He knows that anger is a compass, pointing to what requires protection or correction. But anger's full transformation happens under the king archetype. The king governs anger with wisdom. He does not repress it. That would weaken the realm. Nor does he indulge it. That would corrupt it. He channels it through justice. The king uses anger to bless boundaries, to defend truth, and to sustain order. His anger is never impulsive. It's intentional. When your inner warrior and king are aligned, anger becomes sacred fire, the heat that forges integrity. It keeps you warm in adversity, but never burns the village down. That's what mature masculinity looks like. Fierce but benevolent. 8. Responsibility and witness. To integrate anger fully, you must take responsibility for it, not by suppressing it, but by owning it. Responsibility means saying, this energy lives in me. It's mine to understand, not project. Projection is easy. It's always simpler to see anger in others than to admit it in ourselves. But every time you blame, you lose power. Every time you own it, you reclaim it. Witness is the second half of this process. No man can integrate his anger in isolation. You need mirrors, men who have done the same work, who can look at you without fear when you're burning inside. They remind you that you're not a monster. You're a man learning to feel safely. Anger integrated in solitude can harden into stoicism. Anger integrated in brotherhood matures into compassion. Because when you see other men struggle with the same fire, you stop pretending yours makes you unique. It makes you human. Responsibility turns anger into choice. Witness turns choice into wisdom. Anger is not a curse, it's a torch, one that has burned in your lineage for generations. It was there when your ancestors protected what they loved, when they said no to oppression, when they refused to bow to fear. Somewhere along the way, that torch was labeled dangerous, and you were taught to drop it. But the world doesn't need men who've gone cold. It needs men who can carry fire without burning down the village. When anger rises, don't shame it, don't worship it, listen to it, ask it what it's defending, let it teach you where your edges are, let it teach you who you are. You can live your whole life trying to be harmless, or you can learn to be good. The difference is that the good man knows his power and aims it wisely. So the next time anger visits, remember, it's not coming to ruin you. It's coming to remind you that your life still matters enough to protect. Be that man, not perfectly, reliably. Begin.